What a great triangulation coming up in just a bit. The secrets of great game design and a first look at the Magic Leap. It's next on Triangulation.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Triangulation, episode 368, recorded Friday, October 12th, 2018. Nicole Lazzaro. Triangulation is brought to you by Rocket Mortgage from Quicken Loans, introducing Rate Shield approval. If you're in the market to buy a home, Rate Shield approval locks up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. It's a real game changer. Learn more and get started at rocketmortgage.com/triangulation. And by ZipRecruiter. Most job boards overwhelm you with tons of wrong resumes. That's not smart. ZipRecruiter finds the right people for you and actively invites them to apply. Now that's smart. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/triangulation. It's time for Triangulation. That's the show where we get together with some of the most interesting people in technology. And it's kind of fun for me because I get to meet my heroes. And I hope it's fun for you. You're the third side of the triangle. And you can, if you're watching live when we do this show, usually Fridays around 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, you can join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. Your questions, your comments, all help make the show better. And you're going to want to be, you're going to want to stay tuned for this one. It's very, very fun. Nicole Lazzaro. I did it wrong every time. I think it's a thing in my head. Not for your name. I do it to everybody.
Oh, it's okay.
Mispronounced her name the first time. Nicole Lazzaro is, I'll say she's the founder and genius behind XEODesign. But really, when your mother asks you what you do, what do you tell her?
What do you do? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is a good question. Well, essentially, I make games more fun. So.
Oh, I like that.
There we go.
And your mom goes, she does something with computers. that's what my mom. Something with computers.
Well, it's really, I do something with computers and how computers, move us in interesting ways.
How do you get into something like that?
Well, I studied, psychology at Stanford. And I was really fascinated with, at Stanford, what I wanted to do is I wanted to have a double major in psychology and filmmaking. Because I really wanted to understand, why does the language of cinema work?
Did you want to be a filmmaker?
I wanted to be a filmmaker, and then I wanted to be a filmmaker, and then I discovered this thing called a computer.
Yeah.
And so then I wanted to be an interactive filmmaker.
Ah.
And so I wanted to be able to go into these worlds and and change things.
Isn't that what a game is? Really, is an interactive film?
Yeah. And then games started to come out. So we had Adventure. And I played Adventure on lots. The low overhead time sharing computer. It was all on all keyboard only.
Colossal Cave, Crowther and Woods.
Yeah.
The 350 or the 651 version. I loved Adventure. I played so much Adventure.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then
this is the one where you're standing at the end of a road. There's a dark woods. There's a house. And you have
and then a lot of it was
text.
just text.
It's all text. Go left, go right, go up, go down, throw axe.
Yeah, and there'd be a little maze drawn out with ASCII characters, and you're going after
you had the graphic, the one with graphics. Oh, you had the fancy one.
Fancy, I don't know. But because it really captures your imagination. Where is it and why?
It does, and
that?
it's so simple.
Yeah, it's so simple. And then later when I went into interactive media.
Yeah.
So CD-ROMs came out. Apple launched the Macs, and then CD-ROMs came out. And so I really love this idea of what could we do? Could we create these stories?
This has been a real challenge, though, because storytelling normally is an arc. It's a beginning, a middle, and an end. A hero's journey. Yeah. You have to, and there's a very rigid almost structure to it.
Right? Yeah. And so you've got this, in the language of cinema and film, it's all about creating these emotional highs, following a linear 3 acts.
Path,
right? 3-act structure. And then with games, interaction, you want to be have a lot of agency on the other axis, right?
Right.
And
agency is the enemy of storytelling
so you would think, right? Because you can't figure out what is the ending. So we've been evolving, since those times. What is the language? What could we do where we mesh those things up? Yeah. And so those are the kinds of games experiences that I enjoy the most. So when I got the chance to work with, Robin and Rand Miller on Myst, the Myst.
You worked on Myst?
Yeah.
Like the original Myst?
I worked on Myst 2, so Riven, and then I worked on Uru and on Myst 5.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah, they're such geniuses. And it's like you want to go to another world.
It was the original, it was a puzzle game, but it was a very vivid, for those who don't know, and there are probably people under a certain age who don't know what we're talking about. MYST. Look it up, kids.
And there is a version on the iPhone.
Is there? Oh,
yeah, you can actually play it on the iPhone, iPad. It's different. It's different.
So the idea was you're in a very immersive world, but it's not like a first-person shooter world that you're running through.
It was the first game that really got. It was really the first game that really got me into another world, and I think that's why it was so popular.
Yeah.
Is that it was a vacation. When I played Myst for the first time, I did it in a weekend, and then I was driving back to work the next day, and coming out of Oakland on the going through the Oakland maze, and I went, I want to go back. I don't want to be in this city. I want to go back, and I went like I'd been on as if I'd been on vacation, and then I realized no, I had just been in Myst.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and so it's like, that at that moment, that's when I decided I really want to do, my own experience. I really want to learn how to make, these, interactive worlds where you feel a lot of agency and you feel a lot of emotion. And so that passion has really driven me, for my whole career to today, where we have, AR and VR, these mixed reality experiences.
So did you? I mean, somebody with that urge would start a game company and write a game. Did you do that, or did?
Well, I wanted to do, basically I thought I would learn on other people's nickel first.
Very smart.
And, we live in San Francisco, Bay Area, and we all know with the original 49ers, who made the money was not the people, in the mines, the people that were selling the axes and the pixels.
Levi's.
The Levi's jeans and stuff like that. So I did a consulting company first, and that's what XEODesign, continues to be today.
But I bet you there was another motivation, not merely economic. And I think this is actually why I'm a journalist. I didn't want to throw all my eggs in one basket. I wanted to sample every basket.
Exactly. Yeah. So we basically were, with this consulting structure, we were able to rotate out or rotate through, 5 to 10 games, in a single year. Right?
Yeah. Whereas if you were in one game, it'd be 3 years of development.
It would just be one shot. Right.
Yeah.
And so we really wanted to study what creates engagement from multiple angles. And so then the next phase of the company was I went in and just took 2 years to actually do really deep research on emotion and what drives people, what drives players, what makes things.
This is your psychology.
This is the psychology, yes. So the psychology side, because I wanted a toolbox.
Had anybody studied this before?
Nobody had ever studied this before. What we had was the research that had been done for casinos, right? So you had Skinner boxes, you had behaviorism, right? You had all that fun stuff.
That's the brutalist design of games. That's like put another quarter. Put another quarter.
I could see all of my game designer friends really they love psychology. They want to know how does the brain work, and that was the only tool that was available. But yet I would turn around, I'd look at Myst, and I co-founded the Multimedia Studies program at San Francisco State.
Oh, neat.
Teaching there.
Very good, very famous program.
Yeah, it was the first one of its kind.
Yeah.
And so what I noticed that some games, some experiences, some non-games would actually be people would do for hours, and then some would just do it once and they were gone. Right, they didn't want to come back to it. So that's what kind of lit the spark. Like, well, what is it? So I then looked at. I did 2 years, did a lot of secondary research in the literature, and then I did primary research where I actually had people play games, and I measured the emotions on their faces while they played. So at home, school, and work, young or old, everything from Halo to Bejeweled, from Tetris to Call of Duty. And I took those moments and I used Paul Ekman's facial action coding to slice up those moments and sort them by the emotions people were feeling.
So you videoed them?
Their faces, yeah. And there's something called micro expressions. And so you can see, sort of like when you, one I like to use, like, when you smile or when you're in enjoyment. A lot of people think it's when you smile, which is contracting the zygomaticus here, so you get a smile. But that's actually not the best indicator, because you can smile, you can force a smile,
we can all smile.
Right, yeah, smile for the camera.
It's not in the eyes, you're not smiling.
Right, and that's the eyes. So then what about the eyes, right? And it's these crow's feet here. It's the orbicularis oculi, the contraction of this muscle here that indicates true enjoyment. Some people can fake it, but a lot of people,
Yeah, I'm good at faking it. I've learned all about the cubulus oculi.
The cauliflower oculi. No,
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and so then it's not, well,
So would
then,
you do nowadays, would you like to do a functional MRI of people's brains?
I really want to do a functional MRI.
That's where you can do a magnetic resonance of brain activity, but you can actually do it while persons are doing something.
Are actually doing things. And that's the neat thing about games. And again, my psychology and gaming come together is that if you have a game, and we saw this like within Myst, people would, I think it was with Uru when they brought back the classic Myst sound. For the books, you know, people were like, oh, and then they described this tingling feeling.
Yeah,
they had
I just got it.
And then up the back of their head. And what's amazing about that?
I just got it.
And that's the
I'm
classic
getting it right
sign
now. I remember that sound. Yeah.
And that's the classic feeling of wonder. That's actually the physical sensation of wonder. So the body is responding to something new, and it orients attention. And there's a whole
Can
I could
you
write
make
a
a game that does that?
That's why Myst was so popular. Because it creates, curiosity, wonder and surprise. And it's the exploration in Myst that works really well with creating those emotions. And then if you had a game that had a different mechanic, we noticed that created different set of emotions. So like a first-person shooter game.
Call of Duty does not give you a sense of wonder.
No, well, yeah, no, it doesn't. In a sense, like if you think about the core loop anyway in Call of Duty, it puts, stuff flying at your face, at eye level. That creates fear. And
it's fight or flight right there.
It's fight or flight. And then that works really well with, get the sniper, move on. Get the sniper, move on.
Yeah, because that's satisfying if you respond and you handle the stimulus.
Right.
That gives you a sense of satisfaction. Is that the motive? Is that the thing that's keeping you playing the game? Yeah,
so basically you get into these loops, right? But what we noticed is that when we went in is that it's that, but then even in Call of Duty or the big popular ones, and then eventually World of Warcraft, is that it wasn't just that hard fun. Is like in between battles, or if you're going into you go over a hill and suddenly there was this great vista, or in Halo, right, there were these moons.
There
and
are
planets.
these wonderful moments,
and so then we slipped back into what we call easy fun. So it's this exploration feeling. You get basically you think about like when you kill the boss monster, you get like really the game is very difficult. You feel like you win. You go, yes,
success.
I got success. And then what the next thing the game designers do for popular games is they then put you into a new level, a new world, and there are no monsters, and then now you're all exploring again. And so there's you go from that frustration to winning to now a different emotional state, which is, it goes back to easy fun. We're exploring curiosity, wonder, and surprise. You find a puzzle, you find a potential enemy, and then you go back into hard fun. And so what happens is that we saw people looping between these different types of fun.
I am holding in my hands the secret. Nope, don't show it. The secret to a great, don't show it. Nicole charges a lot of money for this. All right, I'll tell you what. When we come back, we're going to take a break. The secret to a great game. It's like a great work of art, though. It can't engage you on one level. It has to engage you on multiple levels, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, because you get your full body gets engaged.
You want a complete experience.
And you can be engaged over the time.
And that's what's wrong, really, with a Vegas casino mentality, or just making it about drops or loot boxes. You can get that mechanic, but you're gritting your teeth the whole time. It's like, I can't stop. I can't stop.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, basically, there's a difference between having fun, and
compulsion,
and being compelled to play. And being compelled to play doesn't feel good in the body.
No.
And what happens is you actually can then really limit your audience for your game, because if people feel like they get too addicted, it's like too much, they'll quit. But they quit like cold turkey and they walk away. They walk away from all games.
That's what happened to me, and The Simpsons tapped out. But that's a story for another day. Let's take a break. This is great. Nicole Lazzaro is here. She is a game guru, I'm going to use that term, and is going to talk about the mechanics. And then a little later on, she brought something really cool, which is, I think, the next big thing in gaming. So we'll talk about that too. We're gonna run out of time. There's a lot to do, but let me first tell you about our sponsor, Rocket Mortgage. Folks, if you're buying a new home, okay, this is a good example. Actually, I bet there's some psychology in this. Rocket Mortgage is the #1 mortgage lender in the country, and they got that way because they just became #1, like in December, beating that big bank, the one with a whip. And the way they did it is customer focus. So you can really plot it out. 8 years in a row, #1 according to J.D. Power, #1 in customer satisfaction. Boom, boom, boom. 8 years in a row. In the 8th year, they become #1 in volume. It's a clear connection. When a company focuses on the customer experience, we all win. And when you're buying a home, this is a big deal because buying a home is a stressful thing. It's like anxiety. You're going to write the biggest check you ever write in your life. You're buying something that you and your family are going to live in for a long time. This is your whole life you're doing. So Rocket Mortgage, Quicken Loans, understands this. They did a couple of things. First of all, they made Rocket Mortgage, which is a completely online mortgage approval process. No more going to the big bank, no more dressing up, no more pretending you don't need the loan, because they will not lend money to people who need it. No more going to the attic to find papers like your pay stubs from 5 jobs ago or last year's bank statement. You don't do any of that. You just go to rocketmortgage.com/triangulation, answer a few questions you already know the answers to. It's fast. Within 10 minutes, most of the time less. They call this, by the way, this whole thing, the power buying process. Within 10 minutes, they'll give you pre-qualified approval. Boom, just like that. You choose the term, the rate, the down payment, and you're done. You're set. Now, here's the next thing that happens, and it doesn't involve you at all. Over the next 24 hours, they're going to verify income, assets, and credit. They will not ask you to fax them stuff. They will not be calling you. They're going to do this all automatically. At the end of that 24-hour period, you're going to get verified approval. Now you are essentially a cash buyer. When you're making an offer on a house, you show them that letter that you printed out from the Rocket Mortgage, verified, you're verified. And the seller says, oh, well, they're good for it. They're like a cash buyer. They go right to the front of the line. That's very good for you. Really does reduce that anxiety. And finally, once you're verified, you qualify for their all-new exclusive Rate Shield approval. This is a big one. For a long time, last few years, interest rates have been very flat. But all of a sudden, they're going up, right? That really ends anxiety, because as you're looking for a home, you don't want the pressure of, we got to buy it now before interest rates go up some more, and it's going to cost us more. You don't want that pressure. So what Quicken Loans does, once you're verified, you get the Rate Shield approval. They lock up your rate for up to 90 days while you shop. You got 3 months, up to 3 months to look for the house. If rates go up, doesn't matter. Your rate stays the same. Actually, if rates go down, your rate will go down. But they can't go up. So you win either way. It's exactly why Rocket Mortgage and Quicken Loans are the best lender, the #1 lender in the country. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say customer focused. You get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/triangulation. rocketmortgage.com/triangulation. Rate Shield approval is only valid on certain 30-year purchase transactions. Additional conditions or exclusions may apply. I was listening to the radio the other day and I heard this ad, and they sped this part up so fast. I don't. Let's see if I can. Based on the Quicken Loan. No, I'm just going to read it normal. Based on Quicken Loans data in comparison to public data records. You want to hear this stuff. Equal housing lender. That's important. Licensed in all 50 states. Yes. And MLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. That's all consumer protection stuff. Look, here's what you need to remember, though. rocketmortgage.com/triangulation. rocketmortgage.com/triangulation. We thank them for their support of our Triangulation program. We thank Nicole Lazzaro for being here. She's the founder of XEODesign. Companies go to her when it ain't working, when they need help, when they want ideas.
When the game's not fun.
Ooh. No one wants to play a game that's not fun.
Yeah.
We've all played them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard to make a game great.
It's hard. Yeah, making games is hard. Making fun is really hard.
Yeah, making fun is hard work.
Yeah.
Actually, that's an interesting question. Do they look like they're having fun, these people making these games, or do they feel like, oh, I'm in the salt mine?
Sometimes, yes. Well, it's hard fun at that point because, in a sense, like you can't push a button and save the princess, you can't push a button and win the Grand Prix.
Right.
You have to feel a little bit of, frustration first.
It's kind of like a game, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when they get to the end and they make something great, their vision that they had for the game powered them through, and then they have something.
Right. Well, and it feels worthwhile, right? You want to climb that mountaintop, and then because you had to climb it, then that's what makes it.
Yeah, that's right. If you just push the button and the princess was saved, that's not a fun game.
That's not a fun game at all. Right?
So you and I'm going to frame this because it's more than just games. This is life in a way. This 4-leaf clover that you have, it's the 4 keys to fun, and by the way, thank you for the autograph on this. So talk about this. There's 4 kind of leaves on this clover. There's easy fun, hard fun, people fun, and serious fun. Does a game have to have all of this to be really good?
Basically, what we found in measuring emotion on people's faces is that people's favorite game experiences had at least 3 of the 4. And what they would do is within any play session, they would actually rotate between them.
So it's almost like you're driving around a clover leaf. You're going.
And then if you think about what narrative is with a classic 3-act structure, right? Beginning, middle, and end. This is a way that games actually vary the emotional state of the player, allow them to vary the emotional state of themselves just by moving between different types, different leaves on that clover.
So games often start with this part, curiosity, easy fun, right?
If you think of what games do is they basically offer novelty, they offer challenge, they offer friendship, and they offer meaning. So those are the basis of those four keys. Easy fun is curiosity. It's the hook that pulls you in, right? It's the exploration. It's the bubble wrap of game design. And it's all about exploration, role play, fantasy. And then, but then after a while, it's like, it's
that's
like
too easy.
Dribbling a basketball, that's fun.
Yeah.
But then after a while, it's like, well, I want to do something more, right? Yeah. Something more. So then you have a goal. So basketball hoop, right? But a basketball hoop is, not, is not like, isn't like big right here in between us, right?
No, it's hard fun.
It's small and it's overhead.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's overhead is that it's basically makes it harder, right? Challenging. So that's a hard fun. So you have a goal, an obstacle, the height and size, right? Backboard, strategy with the backboard, right? And then that, I got to, sink that shot.
So you actually talk about 3 stages here. First, frustration.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. Like if you've ever tried to shoot a basketball the first time, frustrating. Yeah. How do they get it in there? Then the second step is something you call fiero. What is that?
Right. So basically, you want to. You basically are. You're trying to get that goal, and your frustration's building each time you fail.
Yeah.
But it's motivational because I really want to get it. I want to win.
The fire in your belly.
The fire in your belly. And so then when you finally do, after feeling so frustrated, you think about that. It's like,
I
so
did
it's
it.
like, So you get frustrated, and then you go, yes, I did it. And then you feel relief on the other side. So you think like difficulty on one axis and skill and time on the other. If it doesn't get harder over time, you're going to quit because you're bored.
But you don't want it to be too hard either.
Because you'll leave because you're too frustrated. So there's this zone. We built this on Csikszentmihalyi's model of flow, and within that zone, you want to be you want that play, the perfect balance of difficulty and skill.
Right.
The only way you get to fiero though is where you're pushing that upper limit. And then you win at that point. Like just at the point when you're about ready to throw your iPhone through the window, if you win at that point, that's when the arms punch the sky.
So when he talks about flow, he's talking about mostly athletes getting in the zone. We know about the zone. But do you think video games create flow too?
They absolutely do. So there's and each of the 4 keys has its own mechanics for types of flow.
Interesting.
So we've sort of done a tesseract to Csikszentmihalyi's model in a sense that these are 4 dimensions of play, 4 dimensions of what really makes games fun.
So we've got easy fun and hard fun, and I've played games with both of those. What else happens here?
So, well, basically the feeling of fiero, it's a wonderful, full body emotion, hard fun. Yes, I won.
Yes. When we do that functional MRI, there's going to be lots of red.
Lots of stuff going on. Yeah, lots of stuff going on. And then though with people fun, what's interesting is that basically if you win in the context of friends, that's even more fun, right? That's even more. So communication, cooperation, the social dynamic.
That's something game designers have recently discovered because most games until recently were single player.
Right, exactly. And then once you get into console gaming, it was really helpful. It was like the more fun was had on the couch than actually, in the game. You really were designing the experience on the couch, right?
That's right.
You're jostling your friends, or, calling out. There's more emotion in people fun than the other 3 combined. And people playing the same game in the same room have more emotion than people playing the same game in different rooms.
Because we're designed around people. Yeah, it's all about people.
But if you think about esports, it's got to be, kind of co-located or some way of a lot of social interaction in order to get the most out of a game experience. Because then you get those feelings of first of all, laughter. That's the easy. If you hear laughter, you're getting some people fun, and then the feeling of friendship is super important, especially today when we're so disconnected with all of our devices.
Yeah. So this is amici, which is Italian for friends.
Yeah. So it's like the like button on Facebook. Why Facebook is so addictive, or even chat rooms. They're so addictive because you're chatting.
And then
with each
amusement. That's the laughter, right? You call it amiero, which is the friendship that develops between them. And then finally, admiration.
Right. Yeah. So you might admire someone. You might feel nachas. If someone who helps.
We got a little Italian and a little Yiddish.
if well, and if someone you help succeeds, right? And then you can also cavil about their so in Mario Kart you have 2 slots, and
Isn't
you
it
can
interesting?
have someone.
English doesn't really have the words for some of these things.
Yes, Italian has a lot.
Italian
And
it's
Yiddish.
It's the languages of passion.
That's right.
That have these words. I love that.
And I think that and then I think we can't move on without Schadenfreude.
Yes, the shameful joy taken in others' misfortune.
Misfortune, right? Yes, and I have some friends in Sweden that say "skuldglädje," which is
same thing.
Schadenfreude in Swedish, is the only emotion, true emotion.
That's why Swedes are so depressed, huh? That's interesting. So they'll build Schadenfreude in these games?
There's definitely Schadenfreude. I mean, Clash of Clans.
Yeah.
That's about revenge. That's a game about revenge. That's it.
That's a very addictive game.
Yeah. And
it's not just these A-list games. It's also casual games.
It's also casual games. Absolutely. Yeah. It's any kind of game.
They
any
all
kind
have to
of
have
play.
that.
Some of these emotions work. And what I want to say is that what's interesting is that if you move the high performing games, people's favorite games, move them around an emotional map. So it's not just
one feeling.
one thing.
Yeah.
It's not just put a quarter in and pull the slot
That's the
machine,
worst.
right? It's not just that loop.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot healthier because you're developing social relationships with people.
Sure.
Fun. You're de-stressing with easy fun. You're relaxing. Hard
What's
fun.
the serious fun here?
Yeah, so this is really interesting, and we can talk a little bit about how actually the evolution of games has, over the past 10 years since the models come out, has traveled this. But serious fun is all about the result and creating value. People love how games change either themselves, like their brain state, or might change their real world. And the idea is that behind hard fun, when you see that Fiero, it's like, yes, I got it. But then the emotion kind of goes away.
Yeah.
And so what games often do is they'll build in mechanics to extend that emotion over time, that extend and enhance that feeling of accomplishment. So what was the result of play? And if there was a result of play, then it feels less like a waste of time.
Interesting.
So if you think about what drove so many people to Minecraft, those YouTube videos, you made something.
Yeah.
And there's a serious, it's there, right?
You bet.
And then you could, show that. Or if you're streaming your game in Fortnite, you've got something that other people can watch. And then if you have other people who can watch that, then you have serious fun and people fun together. And what we find is that when we've got both of those together, when you have more than one key going, then there's even more enjoyment.
You could get this chart at XEODesign's website, XEODesign.com/whyweplaygames. .html if you want to take a look at that. It's interesting because this research you did 15 years ago, it really holds up. Although I have to say 15 years ago, games were not this good.
They were, we were basically it was...
they were in the first 2 leaves, maybe, right?
Maybe, yeah, we were mostly focused on hard fun.
Yeah.
And that was in the language of games. And I got, some friends, were sort of laughing at me about like, well, why don't we listen to players and like ask them like what they liked or watch and see what they liked.
Right.
And these were who I admire, many of my heroes in the industry were like, no, we'll have the emotions of the arena, but Coliseum, but no other emotions. Like,
how interesting.
I knew that I'd already seen that in my lab, working on games like Myst, for example.
Yeah.
So I did these 2 years of research to tease apart like what it was. And so we basically came out with, easy fun. We came out with the model. And if you think about what happened with the industry is that we obviously continue to have hard fun.
You were completely right. The industry proved you right.
Yeah.
Hard fun and easy fun we had, but they added people fun. And
if you remember, do you remember the launch of, we had the Xbox, we had the launch of the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And then we had the launch of a third console. The next generation,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Which was, we had Nintendo, right? And then we had the Nintendo Wii.
Right.
The Nintendo Wii with its little Wiimote was totally easy fun.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that swept the map for that first year of any hard fun that came out of stuff with 10 times the graphic processing power, because the easy fun and people fun in the Nintendo Wii were so strong.
But it didn't last.
It didn't last because there wasn't enough hard fun. But then we had some other things that came out, which was kind of interesting. So we had, you could argue whether or not these are games. Lots of people I'm sure on the channel will be, but Farmville, right?
That's a game.
Users,
Hell, that's a
80 million
game.
users. That's all people fun.
Yeah. And Farmville spawned, and I mentioned Simpsons Tapped Out, but it spawned, and I was doing We Rule, and totally addicted. And which was basically Farmville, right? Kind of with more mechanics.
Yeah.
And I remember my wife saying, "What are you doing every morning?" I said, "Well, I have to farm." And she said, why don't you knit a sweater? At least you'd have something at the end of the day.
There you go.
She mocked me, and she was right.
Well.
So then I found Simpsons Tapped Out.
Okay.
Same problem, right? It basically these are farming games essentially.
Right, right. It's the building phase for an RTS. You know, so Mark Skaggs, who was the designer on lead designer for Farmville, he was on the Red Alert 2 series. So an RTS game, the building phase, that's what Farmville is. It's a simplified version of a building phase of an RTS game.
Real-time strategy, something like StarCraft, which is kind of the king of RTSs.
Exactly.
So, that makes sense. Just the building part, none of the conflict, none of the other stuff.
If you think about the conversation with your wife about the sweater,
Yeah.
The sweater is all about, like, well, now after you're done with your, you know, your activity, what do you got? And that's where serious fun comes in. And it's about the result of play. So it makes it feel like, you know, the
accomplished something.
That you accomplished something. The game was not a waste of time.
And you know, one of the things on here, there's excitement, okay?
Yep.
There's relaxation, okay? Yep. But there's Zen focus. That's that flow that you're talking about.
And that's a really weird thing that we saw. Yeah, well, basically we saw like people playing these really like hardcore shooter like action games.
But it's meditative.
Well, and what was crazy, it was sort of like smoking in a sense, is that some people were like in these really like intense like action games, and they were doing you know, all this stuff, you know, flying at them, and they would like get real excited, right?
Yeah,
makes sense. But then other people were playing these games, and then they had to, in order to focus, they had to like block. They had lots of stuff more stuff to block out, all of this stuff, and they actually would get into a very Zen-like state.
Yes,
right. So you have some people like going way out, you know, just getting super excited, and they have other people just like using all this stimulus to like get total Zen focus.
And when you watch
totally fascinating. Like,
some of the masters of these games, like Fortnite's a good example. In fact, this is why I always thought esports wouldn't make it, because when you're watching great players play, there's nothing going on. They're not that interesting because they're in that zone.
Well, they're in the zone, right? And you can still see micro expressions, though.
Yeah.
So if you know, and then
know what to look for,
if you know what to look for. But then I think they did just what they did with professional sports on TV.
Yeah.
Is they changed the game a bit, and then they added color commentary.
Yeah, that's what makes it interesting.
And that's what makes it interesting.
If you watch a football player, there's not that much going on, but if you know the story, or the Olympics is a great example, where it's the story behind the athlete that makes that compelling.
And we really care about people, and these people are surrogates. They are, you know, we have an empathetic connection with them.
That's right.
And so then there's this, and that's what moves us, because we experience their joy and their sorrow, but yet we're still not really participating in those spectator
So Fortnite's really interesting. Fortnite right now, I think, is the hottest game.
Yeah, pretty much.
I talk to anybody I talk to, especially of a certain age. Like
and if your game
is
not Fortnite, and if it doesn't have a battle royale, it's not Fortnite, it has a battle royale mode.
Even Call of Duty's coming out with a battle royale version.
Exactly. Yeah.
So why is Fortnite so successful? What is it? Show us how it reflects these values.
Well, I think that what's going on is like we were talking earlier, is it uses the metaphor introduced by the Hunger Games.
If you said this before the show, but if the Hunger Games hadn't happened, we wouldn't know how to do a battle royale.
Right.
But we all saw that movie. Oh, now I understand. So that's always a challenge when you're doing something really new. People don't have a reference point. It's difficult to succeed. You have to have a reference point.
Absolutely, yeah. We found that, like with designing the first iPhone game, for example, is when you have this device, like what do you do that's unique? But you have to take a risk to do something unique, because they might as well just play your game on the PC, right? So you have to be unique and something new.
So you use the accelerometer and the motion.
So what we did is, I actually watched people play, stood in line to buy the first iPhone, and I was in that same line, so I did as well. And what we did was we noticed, like, wow, people really got into the fact that it oriented. They'd never seen anything like that in their life, right?
Great. Oh, that's hysterical.
And then the screen only had 12 buttons on it, and there were never going to be any apps on it.
No.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There was a whole empty row here. It's like
Steve was adamant.
No more apps. No more apps, and it's certainly not a game. It didn't ship with a game.
It didn't ship with a game.
It did not ship. Remember the first iPod did. They had a breakout in a secret mode, but
even the Nokia candy bar phones had Snake.
Exactly. Yeah. So when I went to iPhone Dev Camp the week after the iPhone launched, and teamed up with Joe Hewitt, I really liked that mechanic. Now, what was interesting about the iPhone is that it does touch on all of these, four keys. You want, it was that sense of exploration. Like, this is kind of crazy. There's a little bit I was, a little bit of hard fun, like how do it's not quite intuitive how to interact with it. Intuitive to us today because we've learned. And then there was this social thing.
Yeah. I don't think that, by the way, that was unconscious. I know that maybe it wasn't explicit, but Apple always has had these kind of core tenets about affordability, and they've really thought about UI.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that they kind of got it, that we have something that's going to be different and hard to use. We have to make it fun to learn how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the serious fun of like collecting all these little apps, right?
Yeah,
I think that
it's become an addictive device. Little did they know how addictive.
Yeah, and so in Fortnite's case, what happens is that the people fun, like the competition and some cooperation, and some cooperation too. So in the game, really drives a lot of the play. It happens in a non-fantasy. It's not a like super science fiction-y thing, right? It happens in kind of a more rural, very Americana kind of context. And then there's these amusing like what are you using this for, right? All these different like. That's
an interesting thing. One of the reasons I think Fortnite beat PUBG, both battle royale games, was the amusement in Fortnite that was lacking. PUBG was very almost grim. And also the building mechanics, and that is the serious fun or whatever.
Yeah, well, and if you think about the emotion of people fun, amusement is it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about amusement functionally in the body, as we talk, like we laugh with each other, right?
Yeah.
And then we might, then we feel, you have someone who can say like, can like have you rolling on the floor, literally laughing by saying a single word. You probably have someone laughing, all of you probably do too.
Yeah, that's a close relationship.
Yeah, a close relationship. And then you kind of feel after you can breathe again, right? You kind of feel closer to that person.
Yes.
Right? You kind of feel closer to that person. And so so basically there's a functional role that laughter plays. We laugh with people to socially bond us, and then we laugh at other people.
Little Schadenfreude, always
like
a good,
Schadenfreude, yes,
always a good
to divide us, right? that releases some oxytocin, and so
the love hormone,
right? We call it the cuddle hormone often. But what's interesting is if you give someone a whiff of oxytocin, you can do it with a nasal spray. They will feel closer to people they feel close to, and they will also feel like more angry or more distant from people that they're separated
from. It's about a bonding tribalism.
Yeah, so if they're angry at someone, it's going to amplify anger.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's some really fascinating things if you get in on the neurochemical level.
Yeah.
But if we think of what's lovely about games is that we have this ability to create these experiences that are interactive, and even without a pre-built linear narrative. And a narrative is there. Stories are there to move us, right? They amplify the emotions we might feel through an empathetic process. Here, through an interactive process, using the 4 keys, you can actually create emotions, on a moment-to-moment basis with your players.
Are game designers doing that? Sometimes I worry that they're maybe manipulating us, like playing like a puppeteer, playing those emotional keys. They're doing that, aren't they?
Well, I think that they're providing you the keyboard, but I think you as the player are the one that's are
you're
the
pulling
one
the strings,
where you're
your own
strings. Yeah, and if you think of things like mixed reality, for example, it's like and with games too, as we go through these different phases, like if you think about like the first automobiles, okay, you have on one side you have this the horse and buggy, and then you have the modern automobile, the Tesla on the other side. And then in the middle, you have this sort of awkward teenage phase where it's neither this nor that, right? And that's where we are with
the car is based on the word carriage,
right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, okay.
And so what's really fascinating with XR is that we're in this. We're in this phase where it's neither one or the other. We don't know as game designers, do we jump out front and lead the horses, grab the reins and lead them, right? Or do we, hop up next to the player and then we drive them, right? Or do we hand them, do we hand them the reins and put a carrot out in front of the horse and say, oh, look over here, look over here? Or do we just, give it to them and then we're just in the cab along for the ride?
Some people, though, are going to hear this and see this and think that what's really happened is that game designers, and I will say the gamification of everything from Twitter and Facebook and Google to Fortnite and World of Warcraft, that really what we've gotten very good at is almost weaponizing gamification to the point where we're addicting people.
Well, this is what I saw in the whole gamification movement. One of the core models was actually the 4 keys. So that was actually inspired a lot of the gamification efforts. Why I released the model, though, is I wanted to not have the only interactive model be stimulus response reward loop scheduled, which is what you do in a casino. That's basically how you just deliver.
It's a Skinner box.
The Skinner box. And Skinner boxes are
presses
not,
the pellet, presses the button, gets some food, or maybe
fun. But I think what happens with here, what's lovely is that the ability now you have instead of like the 3 or 4 emotions you can get with a Skinner box, you have a whole several octaves, a whole keyboard of emotions that are coming from interaction, and then you can use that as a tool to create different responses. And so we've got we have Blizzard using the model, the people.
But see, there's been criticism of Blizzard because they take World of Warcraft and they get huge amounts of data on what quests keep people playing the game, what loot drops keep people playing the game.
That's the Skinner box.
That and it looks as if that's a loop. That that worked really well. And what's the outcome of that is people play addictively. For hours, they lose their lives, and there's some criticism of that.
Well, absolutely, and I think that the one of the reasons why I wanted to release this model is that it would be easy for designers who wanted to create experiences that were really good for people, right?
So this helps them realize that Skinner box, as effective as it is, isn't the best way to make a game.
Right. Well, and that there are other alternatives.
And that there's other ways.
And there's ways of making new kinds of games.
Yeah.
And I think that the most easy to understand is like with people fun. People being bonded with your friends. That's a
benefit.
That's a huge benefit. People will play games even though they hate playing games just to spend times with their friends. Right. A nice analogy on this is like, if you've played poker, you might have some of your friends, if you have a poker night.
The only reason I play poker is to be with my buddies.
Right.
I don't care about the game.
Right. And then you have other people like, stop talking and bet.
Yes, there's
because this is a game,
guy.
right? Yeah, we want to play poker, right?
I want to win my money back.
Win my money back, exactly. So there's some people for hard fun, right? They want that, right?
This life really conforms to this chart.
So, or serious fun, I want my money back, right? Or is this poker or are we socializing?
I'm here for people fun.
And then are your people fun, which is just socializing. And then some people just like the sound of the cards shuffling, right? Just the rhythm of playing.
Easy fun.
Playing solitaire. That's why, if you wonder, like, why would people play solitaire?
Good question.
It's just
easy fun.
Just to go on that and soothing.
Yeah.
So what my hope is, and millions of leading developers use this model, around the world, and actually a lot of developers, outside of games, use it, is really to focus on creating these really rich player experiences that unlock human potential through play.
In a positive way.
Yes.
But you also said something interesting to me before the show. You also want everybody to know about these models and these techniques so that we aren't victimized by them.
Exactly. And I think that there's this is why the model's for free, right? So that you can download.
Because you could really keep this to yourself and make a little more money.
I definitely.
You said you got to pay me the fee if you want to know about the 4-leaf clover.
Yeah, we'll give you one, but you have to pay us for the other 3. So we could have gone that, but for me, it's all about doing. It's all about doing work that needs doing, and if if we come into the world with good intention and help others, inspire others, I think that's a virtuous cycle.
Yeah.
And we've seen amazing games that have come from.
What do you like? What have people not played that you think is a good example of this?
Oh goodness! So
you probably don't want to play favorites among your clientele. So
that's a little hard. That is a little hard.
I'll think of some, but I think of some indie games that were really interesting.
Yeah, well, if you think of like 2 Dots, there's that wonderful map.
I love 2 Dots. I can't stop.
Map, and I didn't work on it. It's just this wonderful map, the little journey map. That's all like easy fun and serious fun. If you add to a casual game, if you add a map, that's automatically, moves it in.
It's totally addictive, by the way.
There's a really good example actually with Bejeweled. If you remember Bejeweled.
I remember. I had a girlfriend who played Bejeweled, and I had one of those handheld devices. It was a Sony Clio with a stylus.
Yeah.
And she ground
the screen.
the lines of the Bejeweled game into the screen of that thing. It was.
And you remember,
that's compulsive.
Well, you think about it. At a certain point in time, Bejeweled was like, okay, there's not going to be another Match 3, right? Match 3 is dead. If you remember this, this was a few years ago, and then along came Candy Crush. Right. Now, Bejeweled, if you look at the 4 keys, was really good at doing serious fun.
Yes.
Okay, so it was, repetition,
Zen.
rhythm, completion,
Yes.
pattern matching, all that. Well, what happened with Candy Crush is they added, I think the most obvious things, they added hard fun.
Yeah.
Each level was different, right?
Yeah.
And you had to figure out a new
It's
strategy.
challenging. Yeah.
And they had locked jellies, and they had these gaps, and they had then they added goals. You have to get 4 cherries to finish this. And you had the lollipop hammer, power-ups. All that stuff is hard fun. They added more easy fun, and then the map. The social map, kind of like, okay, now I want to keep going.
Fun here.
So you can think about the difference between Bejeweled and Candy Crush is a nice way to think about, the ways of increasing engagement.
And Candy Crush is hugely successful. Although people, I think, often feel trapped by it.
And that's what I think where we need to work. We need to work more on, and that's we've been looking at in our own games. Like we have a game called Tilt World, and it plants trees in Madagascar. So based on the first iPhone game, which I designed, a rotating mechanic, you control this character called Flip, the little eco tadpole. And she eats carbon out of the air, gathers seeds, and then you use those seeds, those points, actually plant trees on the island of Madagascar and, around the world.
Fun.
And so that feeling of completion is nice. And then with Follow the White Rabbit, what we're doing is really trying to connect people. It's an XR mystery adventure. And, virtual reality, augmented reality is all about an empathy machine. And so what we're doing is we're going around, around the world increasing empathy.
I want to take a break. We're going to go to Act 3 of our show and talk about, since you brought it up, this is something kind of special, the future of gaming. Not virtual reality, XR or mixed reality or augmented reality. Our guest, Nicole Lazzaro, is the founder of XEODesign, a game guru, and I am so this is fascinating. I could go on and on, but I've got to see what's in the box. That's a good game. And what does this have to do with it? We'll find out. Our show today brought to you by ZipRecruiter. If anything, I think ZipRecruiter has gamified hiring. Hiring is a nightmare, and it's the worst if you're a small business like ours or a sole proprietor. When you're doing the hiring, you're a person down, right? And that means you've got to work harder. You're doing that job plus trying to find somebody to fill the job. And yet, I think we all know how important this is. Every person in your company can make or break the company. Your company's it's made of people, and the right people can take you to the moon. The wrong person, just one, can bring you right down. That's why it's important that you fill that job with the right person. The right person's out there, but how do you get to them? That's where ZipRecruiter comes in. ZipRecruiter is awesome. It starts because you post once on ZipRecruiter, and it goes to more than 100 job sites, social networks like Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. So that means more chance that the right person's going to see that job posting because you don't know where they are. But there's another step that they take that is awesome. There are job sites that make you wait for the right candidate to apply to your job, right? Well, yeah, that's how they work, Leo, right? No. That's not smart. You know what's smart? Going to ZipRecruiter.com/triangulation, because ZipRecruiter doesn't just depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. They have, they're not calling it AI. I'm going to call it AI. They have very powerful matching technology. The minute you post that job, it scans thousands of resumes, identifies people with the right skills, education, and experience for your job, and then reaches out to them and invites them to apply. It means you get qualified candidates fast. Our bookkeeper left this a couple of months ago. Lisa was really depressed because it meant she was going to have to do all the work. It was a real pain. And then she's got to find the right person. Then she's got to train them. And I said, look, ZipRecruiter, let's just try it. That was at breakfast. By noon, it was so great. Lunchtime, she said, oh my gosh, I got a candidate. Oh, I got another. Oh my gosh, these are great. I think she had 3 or 4 really great candidates within just a few hours. That's why ZipRecruiter is rated #1 by employers in the U.S. This comes from hiring sites on Trustpilot, over 1,000 reviews. #1, because within a day, you're going to get a qualified candidate thanks to ZipRecruiter. This is a huge breakthrough. Right now, you could try it for free, so there's no reason not to go right now to ZipRecruiter.com/triangulation and just give it a test spin. Well, maybe you don't have a job opening, but the minute you do, go to ZipRecruiter.com/triangulation and try it. It was a miracle for us. It changed our whole attitude towards filling that position. Lisa was depressed. She thought, oh, this is going to take forever. We found somebody like that, somebody great. ZipRecruiter. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Cherie. ZipRecruiter.com/triangulation. Our guest is a game guru. She helps game companies make their games more fun, more intriguing, more interesting, more successful. She's done it for years. Nicole Lazzaro, she's with XEODesign. That was her company that she created to do this. We've been talking about what makes a game great. But you are in town for LeapCon, which is the big Magic Leap convention. And you have in your hands something I've been dying to get my hands on, a Magic Leap. Tell us about, well, I'm going to say a little bit about this because I've been very skeptical for years about the Magic Leap because they raised a lot of money. They've been promising the world this is augmented reality, so you wear glasses, you see the real world, but stuff's superimposed on top of it. And everybody who saw it raved about it, but Magic Leap wasn't showing it to anybody. They weren't letting anybody talk about the technology. It seemed like, I don't know, overhyped. Is it?
There is a lot of, you have to, I know it sounds cliche, but you have to try it in order to understand what it's delivering.
Yes.
The experience of seeing spatial computing is like nothing you've ever, experienced before.
Now, and people said that about the Oculus Rift. I got one, and it made me queasy, and I stopped using it pretty quickly. I did the same thing with the HTC Vive, although my kid still plays with it all, and his friends play with it. But to me, it's like, I'm not compelled. I've tried them all. The Gear VR, the Oculus Go, I've tried them all. I tried this earlier. In fact, we have a segment you can watch tomorrow if you're watching this live, but Saturday on the new Screensavers. You're right. And what didn't happen is I didn't get queasy. I didn't feel like I was isolated from the world. I was in the world, but the world had new dimensions.
Right. It has so with spatial computing, what it does is it takes it takes information and the sensory information in a sense, pulls it off of a flat screen and then puts it into, doesn't just put it like, your face in a box, right? Just another screen you just stick over your face.
Yeah.
It actually projects it into the room, and it's sensitive to and responds to, and this is the important part, it actually responds to the contours and shapes of the environment around you. And that is something your body has never experienced before. It really is the Princess Leia hologram, project.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
So, but we've seen.
But more than that, it's not just you can actually. It's like as if you take that one step further, where actually she or the Star Wars chess set, where they would actually like walk to the edge of the table here and then jump on the floor and then continue on this, continue.
And it's like they're in your world, but they're not. I mean, you kind of know they're ghosts. They're
holograms. They have a holographic light. They look like light projections. So they aren't as physical as like say this book, right? It's not a solid feeling. But they can be quite compelling, especially in the hands of a good designer.
In some ways, I feel like VR went wrong because of science fiction. They were trying to create the metaverse. They were trying to create this world that you go into that is a different world. If you saw Ready Player One like that, and this is not that.
Now this is a lot more open. I think with a lot of focus, a lot of the money went in VR. A lot of the money went to very hardcore games, which are fun. But the current VR platforms can't do fast action, precise targeting very well. You're just going to get
hardware's
sick.
Not there yet.
The hardware's just not there yet, and so the portfolio had these huge gaps for other experiences, and that's what I'm really excited about. Magic Leap. This is the developer kit. So this is Magic Leap 1, and what they're doing though, even with the I was just down in LA for LeapCon, and what's amazing about it is it had they have a whole portfolio of very different experiences. And if you want to get, a technology to as many people as you can, you really want to have something for everyone. So you want like a real gamer's game, like Dr. Grobert's, it's kind of a wave shooter kind of thing.
That comes out of Weta, the New Zealand company that did the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I got to meet them yesterday. Just amazing.
Neat.
Really, I spent a little time there. And then you also have, Angry Birds.
Casual game.
Casual, very super casual game. And then
How is Angry Birds on that?
So Angry Birds is kind of fun. I like Dr. Grobert's implementation, and I think if you could try one of them, I really would recommend that one because the way in which they had to change the UI to respond to the world is amazing.
So they're more aware of what this medium requires, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. So, for example, if you're dealing with if you're in a hybrid, essentially you can think about it as a hybrid holodeck, a holodeck that you build in your room. And seriously, that's what it does feel like. It does feel like you're in a holodeck. You can see the real world, and then if the game responds to that, like it might throw a terrain over that table, for example. It might make that a grassy hill.
Yeah.
And then in Dr. Gerbart's, it might, this looks very much like a lot of their UI. You have to, you can't get haptic feedback right now in these systems.
Yeah.
But what they did, what the Weta Workshop did, is they did some brilliant art direction, but they also did interaction design. They have the buttons that you push. You're not going to push back. It's not going to push back on you, haptic wise. But what you can do is you can, if you hit it, they're all on these gimbaled arms. And so with IK, so then it'll respond. It responds to you. So it'll back out out of your way, or it will loop down. Or if you hit it right, then it does.
And that somehow tricks your mind a little bit into thinking it's more.
Yeah, much more so
realistic
than just a button that's static in the world, and then you're just pushing your hand.
So I can see you're already thinking, because of your background, how do we make this work? How do we make? I compare this to the HoloLens, which is obviously a holodeck-like thing from Microsoft. And that's been out for a while.
And HoloLens was certainly my first time experiencing 3D. Well, I mean, that hologram kind of feeling.
Almost everybody, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I did do Pterodactyl Nightmare or whatever. We
were talking about that back in the
92s,
in the previous century.
In the previous century, 20 years ago or whatever that was.
It was 20 years ago.
So what's interesting about the difference between the two is that the HoloLens is very much a Windows kind of computer. It's very enterprisey, and it has really solid tracking. So if we were to take the 4 keys and project it up as a hologram on the wall, it would stick, or on the floor.
Yeah,
it's very solid.
That's a hard thing to do, and that's something the iPhone tries to do. Doesn't do that well.
ARKit's a little squirrely.
AR Core on Android, same thing. It's putting something on a surface in a way that it really looks like it's on there.
Yeah. Now the fact that we have is from 2 years ago to now is just absolutely amazing, right? Yeah. We have a little ways to go, and that the whole experience, if you think about the 4 keys and my whole thing about emotion, what happens is that the interaction, which is what you interact with the device, you interact as a developer, influences the kind of emotions you feel in the end experience. And so HoloLens is very much a Windows, enterprise kind of.
It's not about emotions. It's about productivity.
It's about productivity. So it's very, lots of rectangles in that.
There's not even a whole leaf of the clover here.
Some of these leaves are a little stunted. Definitely, you know how to use them.
But that's not Microsoft's goal.
Right,
and that's understandable.
Right, and then but this is
intended to do it all.
I mean, if you just look at it, it's
friendlier.
It's much friendlier. Yeah.
But we should also point out that this is not intended to be a consumer product. This is for developers.
This is the developer kit. Yeah.
And it's several $1,000s, and you look adorable in it. It's very science fiction looking, and I know a lot of people listen to this show, so I won't. In fact, if you want to see the demo, you should really watch the new screensavers, where we actually will show you what it looks like, and we can play the game. But I'm curious, from your point of view, this is a new medium, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Do you think what we know about games today will be applicable to this new medium?
Absolutely, yeah.
And is it a rich enough palette?
Already there. It's already there, and that's the breaking news for me as an interaction designer and as someone who's been in the space for years, is that just simply the UI for Magic Leap, it is very warm and friendly, and it's just an interface that wants to love you, right? And it's all about cute and creative, and there's not a lot of evil in it. It's all about joy and warmth.
I think we all have now had enough experience with technology to know that sometimes you try something and it doesn't get you, and sometimes there's something ineffable about it that draws you in, makes you want to interact with it. The iPhone was a good example. Yeah. You're saying this has some of that.
A lot of it. So if you think about, for those of you who are on Mac, there's that little row of icons, on the bottom, and if you scroll over, if you have them do the little toot 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 toot, or you close a window and it does the little genie
first thing
thing.
I'd turn off, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but those little,
because I'm serious. I'm here for productivity.
But if you're frustrated with your spreadsheet and your number crunching,
it makes you happy.
You can just do that and it makes you happy. So that's the bubble wrap, easy fun.
When you throw out something, goes.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's what you see a lot of in this UI for this for Magic Leap.
Interesting.
So it starts with a bunch of circles. It's a collection of circles, and there's a lot of really wonderful audio design. A little easy fun of how they expand and contract. They all have like a little 3D effect, and they will do that whoosh thing. I think the Create app on there has got a really amazing mapping. It's one of the most fun mapping experiences I've had.
And this is
mapping
important.
The space.
It's easy to develop for. You wrote a game in 2 days.
Right. I did a game jam game in 2 days, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a finished product that you would sell, but the fact that you were able to sit down and because it uses Unity or the Unreal Engine, engines that you know as a developer, most game developers already know, and you can actually get there and start doing stuff right away. That's very important, right? You don't want to have a steep learning curve.
Yeah, so they have, the Lumen OS, you can actually, write.
That's their OS, Lumen OS.
Yeah, and they can write, it's all about light. So this is the light pack, which is the computer. And these are light projections. So that's what it feels like. If you want to think about how to design, think about stuff that's holographic and light emitting, because that works well.
You said that. I thought that was really interesting. So instead of reflective light, it's emitted light.
Yeah, it's additive light. So
it's
in a sense, additive light. So anything that you see, so what you see in the world, since these are translucent,
it doesn't go away.
Yeah, these are translucent. So you can actually see them.
It's like wearing sunglasses.
Yeah. And so basically, there's translucent sunglasses. So as you put them on, you see through them, and then they're going to add the in stereo. Because there are 2 lenses.
This thing is crazy technology. There's you said 6 cameras.
There are 8 cameras.
8 cameras.
8 cameras on the outside. There's this magnetic.
There's no big tether. Because you have a little puck that you hang on your belt loop, so you can walk around completely freely. I mean, this is impressive technology by itself.
By itself, yeah. And then the really brilliant thing about the light puck is it took this weight off the head, and that's
right. It's very comfortable.
That's something that
you could wear that all day.
You could wear it. You could wear it for 6 or 5 or 6 hours.
I don't work a long day, so
yeah.
I wish we had more time. What I'm going to tell people to do is watch the new screensavers for Saturday. Let me get the date, October 13th, because we have a longer demo and we walk around. We show you how it works. I did want
to mention one more thing, though, which what drives me into like why I'm so passionate about virtual reality and augmented reality is that if you think about like my experience like working on games like Myst and The Matrix and like designing the first iPhone game, all of these technologies, they're really a ticket to Wonderland.
Right.
And I grew up in Wonderland. I actually grew up overseas for 5 years in the Middle East, riding camels, climbing pyramids, exploring fire temples, And I want to go back and have those same full body wonder emotions that I had as a kid and like bring all my friends. And, AR and VR, technology. This is the first, I've been in games for 26 years. This is the first technology that's actually gotten me able to actually create those emotions I had as a kid.
How exciting.
And so that's why our first game for XR really is this, Follow the White Rabbit. It's a game about a magician that's been a charlatan like all his life until one day his magic actually works and the rabbit disappears. Wearing a diamond bracelet, so now everyone wants to follow the white rabbit. So we're going to go around the world.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Are you going to sell that? Is that going to be a product?
That's going to be a product.
One of the first games on Magic Leap, perhaps.
We will see. So yeah, we're fundraising to get another round of detail into the game. But yeah, I'm the designer and the lead engineer on it.
How exciting!
And so we're having a lot of fun. So great.
Nicole, it was really just fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much. Come back again. And we will look forward to Follow the White Rabbit. That might be the first game I play when I get my Magic Leap. When do you think we're going to have a consumer version of this, you think?
They gave no numbers, so
no, they're not
it's not. I'm not. And I have my own company, so
They've been very smart, by the way, about that.
Yeah.
That's why I think it was smart for them not to show it. That they've even though there's huge pressure on them to show it.
Well, and you can't with modern technology like this, with this lovely flat screen, or we just did a big 8-foot screen, AR experience. If it's not in stereo and if it's not responding to the world, I think this is the other thing. Wonder is a great emotion to go for these experiences. The other thing is that the experience you really want it to be responsive. So I think that's what Dr. Grobot's game does really well, is that they will put the portals on the floor and on the walls, and then the virtual items will respond to your hand passing through them and stuff. And that's what really makes it come alive. It's like the holodeck in Star Trek makes everything disappear. There's no real world in it. But the blending of real world and virtual world in spatial computing is quite compelling. And I think you really need to do that for creating these.
Well, and just as much as there can be wonder if it works, there could be a huge disappointment when it doesn't.
Yeah, and if you
don't want to disappoint people with a consumer product,
right? Yeah,
you don't get a second chance.
You don't get a second chance, and then we really don't want to just port and clone existing IP, into the space, which is why
this is really a new medium.
Yeah, it's a totally new medium. That's really what I like. Insomniac's Seedling, it's a totally new game, little gardening game.
She told us about this on the new Screensaver. Seedling is like a Tamagotchi in the real world. You get a seed and you have to grow it and plant it and tend it day after day, and it grows into your world.
Yeah. It responds to it. So like if it'll grow out on your bookshelf. If you put it between two books, it'll kind of like loop around them. So I petted a hummingbird in the game. You can actually like pet a little hummingbird.
But how important is the haptic feedback going to be? I mean, we don't have any physical touch. There's no smell. There's no touch.
Well, there's a little bit of touch here.
There's only sight
in the
and
device.
sound, pretty much.
Pretty much, and haptic is going to be.
How important is that going to be?
I think that's going to be hugely important.
We have 5 senses. 2 is not enough.
We have more than 5 senses, but that's another.
We'll have at least 5 senses.
We have at least 5 senses, and but basically,
what's the 6th one? Umami? I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, it's the umami sense. No, that's the flavor. That's still taste.
I know.
But what we do is we have. Well, I think in audio design, this is a really great example. Is that and we've done a lot of unpacking. Years ago, I interviewed Walter Murch.
The great sound designer.
Yeah, the great sound designer. So he did Apocalypse Now, and The Godfather, and English Patient, stuff like that. And he told me is that the eyes, you like sound design so much because the eyes blink, but the ears never do. So the ears are almost a direct line into emotion.
Wow.
Now with XR and VR, you're starting to see it in stereo. So we're seeing, we don't have all of the details quite, like you were mentioning on Screensavers, right? You can't do some of these things. But what we in the sound world, if we had as we're talking, but as people on out in the virtual world, you can't experience this. But as you talk, I can actually feel your body. I can actually feel your voice on my body. Right,
because what I'm really doing is moving air.
And I can actually feel that. I feel that on my body.
I'm actually touching a person with my voice.
Right. Yeah. And then when the T-Rex comes a little bit later through those doors over there around the corner. And we don't. We
need to feel its hot breath.
Well, if we don't feel it in our feet.
That's right.
It feels disassociated. We feel like we're floating.
Yeah, so we're not there yet. We got to get to that point.
So that's why experiences like The Void and Nomadic, and
these are those mixed realities where you actually go into a place and there are physical things and there is a hot breath that they project on you.
Yeah, and they
have.
I actually met the guy that does the sonic floor for The Void, right? Yeah. But having
those are amazing experiences.
Yeah, having that sound come up through your feet is just amazing.
Those are VR experiences.
Yeah. So there's Star Wars, Secrets of the Empire down in Disneyland. They've got a couple of other ones there, and the Ghostbusters one I really love.
That's supposed to be great.
And then Arizona Sunshine is coming out soon from Nomadic, and that's another hardscape, kind of blended experience.
We're in really interesting times for somebody like you. This is really exciting.
It's amazing. Well, I think it's for all of us. Like, what is it? My mission is to unlock human potential through play. And to improve quality of life. And now we have this new toolbox where we can. It isn't just about entertainment, right? It isn't just about feeling good or moving me. And maybe you get catharsis and some of the other classic drama goals. You actually can come as a creative. If you slip into this space, you'll have as a prototyping tool these mixed realities. We've got other dimensions and other things that you can do that you could never do, like the puzzle box for the escape room for Follow the White Rabbit. There are things you could never do in a physical escape room. Well, there's also things you could never do in an Excel spreadsheet or in a PowerPoint that you could in an AR or fully occluded VR experience. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Because if you think about all the challenges in the world, like global warming and global warming and these virus epidemics and even the economic system. Especially the economic system. 48% of our jobs going away because of the robots and AI. We could actually use these tools, these very advanced tools, to visualize and help scientists, help researchers, help economists, help with the UN 17 goals of sustainability, help people that are following all of those things imagine and create new solutions faster because they've got more ways to play, more ways to visualize what they're doing. It's so important to me to again, I invested quite a lot in these tools, and it's really all about inspiring people, giving them the goals, giving them new goals, and thinking about, oh wait, what could I do? Could I?
Gaming is kind of at the same juncture that Facebook and Google and all this are at now, where it could go either way. That people could, there's a backlash forming.
Yeah.
And so now's the time to be very serious about thinking about how to show you there's a social value to this, and actually put social value into it, because otherwise.
Yeah.
I fear the future for these companies.
Well, and I've met with some of the leaders, right?
They must know this.
And there's, there is the, we've talked about the addiction problem. So if you go too far, right, then people will opt out, like smoking. I'm going to quit the social media. You already have people doing that. And then if you're not adding value to people's lives, right, and the socialness of social media is still this like really razor thin,
I agree. I mean, you say how adeptly Candy Crush manipulated that and created a better game, but honestly, that is not a boon to society in any way.
So that brings up a topic we didn't touch on.
How many millions of hours are thrown away?
Well, one of the reasons I do, shows like this, and again, releasing the model for free and doing play shops for lots of these different leading developers, is really to inspire them, re-inspiring them again to something they've forgotten. And it's kind of WTF. Yeah. Which is, where's the fun?
Yeah. Good.
There's so many groups I meet with where it was like, well, how can we get more, increase our monetization?
Yeah, we want to make more money. How do we make more money, Nicole?
How do we
make more money?
How do we get more virals? Blah 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 blah. It's like, but they've really lost heart. The heart of games.
You're making games.
Right.
You're not. Yeah. You're not making widgets.
Right.
And
people aren't widgets. People are these wonderful, wonderful beings. They've got so much, they have so much potential, and the institutions that we have really are so ill-suited. So if you think about the average workplace, go in the average workplace. If that were a zoo, the Humane Society would shut it down.
Absolutely.
Right? In an instant.
You guys know, right? They should shut this place down.
Well, because it's not really suited for so many things that people have to do. It's not humane, right? It's not humane. And then, if I got to go and
if you were working in an Amazon warehouse, you would absolutely say, this is not humane.
It is not.
I need the money. I got to have the job. I'm feeding my kids, but this is not humane.
Yeah. And then basically they're tracking, to optimize, optimize me moving the mic, optimize that's not humane either.
It's not humane.
And then if you think about on the creative side, or the even the Excel spreadsheet side, or like I was doing a PowerPoint, which could be creative or or
I love that you said we can make Excel and PowerPoint better.
Well, we certainly can.
Good.
Actually, I think it's just completely ridiculous, completely absurd.
Thank God
that we. Well, by the way,
but you're right, because if it's better, new insights come from it. It's a tool that can be used to change the world.
Right, but and what it is, we're too used to, it's not just a hammer, right? We're used to a hammer, which is a physical, it's atoms, not bits, right? And so it looks the same at the beginning of the job, unless something goes wrong, as it does at the end of the job. Excel looks the same at the beginning as it does at the end. But if you're doing a sales presentation at the very beginning, you need to be an easy fun. You need to be open-minded, come up with new ideas. If you're in photo editing or creating a movie poster, you got to be trying a lot of stuff. So that UI, those interactions, have to create that sort of stuff. And then towards the middle, you got to bring in people. So you got to have actions that your hammer has to have new tools in a sense.
You must be the busiest person in the world. I mean, every company should be talking to XEO Games.
Everyone should be talking about that. At least download the white paper and the poster here, and give it a think.
I can't. You must be booked for 20 years in the future, right?
Oh, not that far.
But seriously, I mean, as soon as people figure out what you're doing, what you're up to,
people figure it out. Yeah, our clients.
We need that.
And our clients, we a lot of our clients, we do 5 to 12 projects. Over
I
the
bet.
course of several years.
Oh God, yeah. You're a genius. Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
It's all about thinking about the world. I don't know if it was Leonardo da Vinci who did this too, but it's all about you want to look at what is the core truth. And so when people come up and say, oh yeah, VR is an empathy machine, it's well, what do you mean by that?
Right.
And just keep asking those why questions. Let's unpack with that. Let's unpack that. And so that's why I went to the only way you can measure emotion, we tried a lot of different things. So, don't measure EEGs, don't measure galvanic skin responses, don't do...
I think the crinkles of the eyes is pretty good.
Right, because it's unconscious and you don't have to, tell me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know the emotion they're feeling.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other
people and humans are very well tuned to it, but we're not aware of it. It's unconscious.
Right. Yeah, and if we're more aware, then we can have better social relationships, and then relationships and then be more functional in the things that we want to do, whether it's a requirement like at work or something we might want to do at play. It's not just fun and games.
Serious.
Yeah.
Nicole,
yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and giving us our first look at Magic Leap. Again, watch the new screensavers from the 13th.
Yeah, we wish we could show you.
Yeah, it's hard. This is. I hope that someday Magic Leap will have, as Microsoft has done with the HoloLens demo places, you can go to a Microsoft store and play with the HoloLens.
Right. Well, and I think they're doing a smart thing, like you said. They've got some really amazing apps. So if you do know someone who has one, definitely have them demo. And then this next crop of apps, post LeapCon, which is the first Leap convention.
Right.
Those are going to be some. I already saw some pretty amazing stuff on the. People were coming up with.
It's happening fast. This stuff is happening faster than I thought it would.
In a year, we're going to be in a really amazing space. Yeah.
And thanks to designers like Nicole, we will have better experiences. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Really a pleasure. We do Triangulation every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, 2200 UTC. I hope you'll come by and watch us live. If you do, join us in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. The live feed is twit.tv/live. But of course, as with everything we do on Twit, you can get on-demand copies at our website. In this case, twit.tv/TRI. Or go to twit.tv/subscribe, and you can figure out how to get it in your favorite podcast app. That way you can listen to it every single week, because there's always somebody interesting. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Triangulation. Bye-bye.